there wouldn't even have been an open population of students unless they were voting, fulfilling their constitutional right, as every citizen is entrusted and acted to do. That's a problem, Mr. Mayor. That is a problem. We better, because May 2020 is coming. Thank you.
Princess Ojala. Ojala.
She's not speaking.
She's not here. She left.
She left.
JoJo Milgraves.
Left.
William Lamptey.
Greetings, Mayor. Greetings, citizens. I want to say students or citizens, but we all are one people. I just want to say this, that we need to take it back to the basics. And I was raised by like-minded, seasoned citizens in the community to know that respect is given and it is earned as well. And I also know that the way you have gone about with the letter, not just with the letter, but with your form of leadership, pride comes before destruction. And I don't mean to be disrespectful or to, because I was raised by the seasoned citizens of this community to talk to my elders with respect. I just need to say one thing, and that is when you diminish the pride and the self-esteem of the youth, of the future of Prairie View University and the future of Prairie View City, that is destroying the future of your city. So maybe that is the agenda. I don't know, maybe the platform, because I'm a sophomore, so I wasn't here maybe when the whole leadership thing started. But maybe that's your platform to, as soon as you get off May 2020, then the whole city of Prairie View will be finished. But if we want this city to continue and to be a thriveful city, we cannot talk to our students like that. We cannot treat our students like that. And have a good of city.
We're going on to item 15. But, have your attention? Right. Well, the first thing I want to do is apologize for being late, because I got a phone call from someone who's been like a mother to me, is 90 years old. Her husband was life flight a couple nights ago, and she's definitely sick. She's been having health challenges. I've never been late to a city council meeting in 3.5 years. But I do want to let you know why I was late, because I got that phone call and I left, and that part wouldn't happen. The other thing that I want to say is I do want to apologize, and I mean that. And I'm saying that because what you read is certainly not what I intended. As what has been told about me being on campus, I was even on campus long before I even thought about becoming mayor. And I do care about students, our university, and our residents. And in rushing to get that response in, I said some things in a way that weren't from me, but I do represent, as you say, the city, the residents on and off campus, and the residents in the city, and their concerns with those on canes and wheelchairs and walkers. That's what it was from an MSC standpoint. So with that, again, I just want the record to be real clear that regardless of what you do and whatever happens, that has never and is not my intent. And I just want to make sure I say that publicly. So item 15 is next. Resolutions. Discuss, consider, and take action. Wait a minute. Hold on.
More people had comments. There should be way more comment cards. More students
No
had
ma'am, I
comments.
ran through them. Please, I ran through them.
Not possible.
Did we go through item 4 and 5? Okay.
I had a card, my name didn't get called, and I didn't take it out.
What's your name, ma'am?
Tahir Bernard.
Well, why don't you just come on up, because we got to the last of them, but come on up. If you had a card, we want you to have the opportunity to speak.
Is there anybody else who filled out a card that didn't have the opportunity to speak?
Mr. Wright, you better know that.
Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I'd like to say hello to everybody. With me being a freshman and working closely with the mayor of Houston, you're very disrespectful in a sort of way that can't be explained with words. And I think when May comes, I hope after May, you can work on that. But I agree with everybody that May, you will see your day, and it will come. Thank you.
How you guys doing? Just a quick thing, man. My biggest thing, I played ball all my life, is accountability. And you know, I had something to say before this, but then you started deflecting everything that everybody said. And you know, if you don't ever take accountability for something, it will never get fixed. So my biggest thing to you is to actually take into consideration what we said and look back at what you have done and how you can fix it. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Council and Mayor. I am Alana Gaskin, Student Government Association Comptroller, heavily involved in this community as I'm the co-founder with Exante Wallace of Abundance of Hands. Every single student in here has done something in this city with Abundance of Hands, the BB Green Team, SGA, Protective Village. We have all been equally involved in this city. As the seasoned citizens would have been as well. We may not have lived here for 30 years, but we have been here and been actively involved. You are, Mayor, you are the city leadership. We are supposed to look up to you and respect you. However, understanding that county commissioner had the final say in their vote, you had the influence to influence the county commissioner court to give us a voting poll on our campus, even if it, whatever the HB, you know, whatever that happened, that letter was a slap in our faces. No matter, even if county commissioner said this, you had the opportunity and the chance to write a letter to advocate on the students' behalf. The students who you campaigned at Panther Hill, with Panther Hill, what was that, spring 2018? And we elected you, respected you, because you was bringing housing when there was no housing. It was a desert for housing. Now these students are living in endangered facilities. Now it's another one being built. Last meeting, inspection wasn't passed, and that was just another ongoing cycle. So I just want to let the students know that I appreciate every single one of y'all here today. I appreciate the council for diligently working to ensure that the students are safe, ensuring initiatives and policies and all that good jazz. But may I truly help that you understand that the students matter and that letter, both letters, were a slap in the face and beyond disrespectful. So as your SGA comptroller, I am here to say
Item 15, discuss, consider, and take action on the resolution of the City Council of the City of Prairie View, Texas, ordering the general election of officers for mayor and city council place 4 and 5 for May 2nd, 2020. Ordering a special election for city council place 3 for May 2nd, 2020. Appointing an election official and providing early voting location. Council, did you get us caught up on your interaction with the election
Sure.
officer where this goes?
Christy Eason, the county elections administrator, has given us the initial 4 locations that the county is using as the early voting locations. And I have given you 3 different drafts of resolutions in case you want to add locations to that. One of them is just the 4. One of them is the 4 plus Prairie View City Hall. One of them is Prairie View City Hall plus the Memorial Student Center at PVAMU. I know the mayor had also mentioned that there's another possibility at the university, which is the Welcome Center. So the MSC is on C, on option C, that you have already.
So,
So it's up to the city council to make their decision. The 4 locations that are stated by the county, those are already set, and those are already divided amongst all of the communities that are having the county use the joint elections administrator. If you do your own, then you are wholly responsible for the cost of any additional, in addition to those.
Okay, who's first?
So, clear, I'm trying to get clarity. We are supposed to be voting on the city of Prairie View's election for mayor, position 4 or 5 in a special election. What has been brought to us, you just was updating us on the 4 locations that Waller County is going to use for the March 3rd and this February 18th primary.
Yes, so,
Because it sounds, we won't, we're only focused on the city of Prairie View's election.
yes, the state statute where you order the general election requires that you include in there your early voting locations. Not your voting day locations, but your early voting day locations. So the reason that those locations are in there is because it's up to you. If you do the, later in the agenda, you see we have the joint election agreement. If you don't do the joint election agreement, then it's up to the city to completely find voting machines and all sorts of things like that. But for this particular election order, you have to have the early voting locations in this itself, in addition to the later agreement.
So we're just adding on to the 4 that are already there. But I just want to clear, we're adding on to the 4 that the county's already using. But my question, those 4 locations do not impact our city of Prairie View's election. Only 2 of them would, so does it matter? That's why I'm asking. The 4 locations that Waller County has given us, the Annex County building that's in Hempstead, we can't vote early voting there for the city of Prairie View's election because that's in Hempstead. My question to you is I'm trying to make sure that are we adopting February 18th or we're only talking about the early voting that will start April 20th in the city of Prairie View? Is that correct?
Okay, so for the May election
Correct.
only, those 4 locations are locations where citizens of the city of Prairie View can also vote early. It is a joint election and you're allowed to vote at those locations as well. If you want to, and you don't have to add any to that.
So you could vote, we could vote.
Joint
in
election
Hempstead?
with, so this is why, that's why I'm asking for clarity. Joint elections for what election? Is it the school board? Is it for some other? Because right now, the only election that we know about is the city of Prairie View's election that will be May 2nd. Early voting starts April 20th. The only location that we had voting was at Prairie View City Hall for election day, but for early voting was City Hall and on campus. You're saying that because the county has those 4 locations, 2 of them will be applicable to us and 2 aren't. They're still going, because they're hosting the joint election, people can go to Hempstead and vote for the city of Prairie View's election. And then if we wanted to add any 2 locations, that's plausible.
Yes, sir.
Is that because of the House Bill 1888?
No, that has nothing to do with it.
So how does it take place that you live in Prairie View, but you could vote in Hempstead for your Prairie View?
Because you're entering into a joint election agreement with the county administrator.
And-
So all
and-
4 locations are.
Unless I'm mistaken, that's how Houston held this last one, where you could vote anywhere throughout.
but
And that's what's
the difference
carrying
is
on here.
Houston is the same municipality. So you just vote in the district. The confusion, I guess, is because Waller has its own government, Butcher has its own government, Waller has its own government, and Prairie has its own government. So you're saying, so people from Waller will be able to come to the MSC to vote for their city government, for the city council?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying any of the participants in the joint election, and those will not be determined until after the last date of filing. So we don't know who will be in that.
So what we're saying is, the city of Prairie View will have an election. Waller may have an election. Waller County, Waller ISD School Board may have an election. And they're saying that we're all gonna do those elections at the same location, So you can vote for the city of Prairie View, then you can vote for Waller ISD. So you're saying the 4 standard locations that the county has, you're including those 2 outside locations. And we're saying that 2 of the main locations that we want, or 1 or 2, we want to just put add on there, and you're saying that we would pay additional, it'd be additional cost to have those 2 manned.
Yes, any that you choose, it doesn't have to be 2, it could be 1 that you choose, it could be 2, it could be 3, it could be 4. But whatever you choose to add on is paid for by the city of Prairie View. The other 4 are split amongst all entities and kind of divvied out pro rata, depending on how many entities there are.
Council Wallace.
Yeah, so for clarity, yeah, so the 4 are listed because it's a joint election. It's not saying that people from the city of Waller are going to be voting for Prairie View's government. It is that those entities in the area can use that same shared spot. Now, we have 3 resolutions. We have A, B, and C. A had just the 4 Waller County Community Center, Waller County Annex, Waller ISD, and Brookshire Convention Center. Resolution B had Waller County Community Center, Waller County Annex, Waller ISD, Brookshire Convention Center, and Prairie View City Hall. And then C had Waller County Community Center, Waller County Annex, Waller ISD Admin, Brookshire Convention Center, Prairie View City Hall, and Memorial Student Center at Prairie View, on Prairie View campus. So, based off of the dialogue that's been held, I mean, it's obvious that the best decision for us is to make sure that that students have their voting place on campus, and then the community residents have their place as been discussed through all these citizens' comments and whatnot. So I would say we would go with C. With C, because C has Waller County Community Center, Waller County Annex, Waller ISD, Brookshire Convention, Prairie View City Hall, and the MSC. That's the only resolution that has an MSC on there.
Right, but you can add or replace the MSC to any of them. So, but I guess the question that we're not talking about is logistically, like, we're in this predicament because of the House bill. And so what's not being explained to us is how, because the House bill has specifically stated that you can only have 4 locations, right?
Okay, so 1888 you asked me to look into,
Right. So,
and it does not apply.
so
It does not apply to this election.
So, but the question is that the only question that comes into play is the cost because of the 2 additional locations.
So if we decide to add additional location, so right now this has 6, right?
Right.
We got the 6. So we will be responsible for
City Hall and MSC.
Or you can do
And
A
so I-
and just add the
Right,
university.
or we can add, or we can do A that has City Hall in there, you can add the university to that, so then we don't be responsible for
Right.
one additional.
A doesn't have
And I
City
did
Hall.
pull the invoice from last year for you, so that you
Talking
could
about B.
have a,
No, you don't, sorry.
I did pull the invoice for last year for you, which included Prairie View City Hall and the Memorial Student Center, and that ran around $4,000
For City Hall?
total.
For City Hall and MSC?
Yes, yes. Now, that's not gonna be the exact same amount, you know, they'll,
That might be a little more.
but that just gives you an example of, you know, how each.
So I guess
Councilman Jones.
I move that we approve item, resolution C, which has the Waller County Community Center, the Waller County Annex, Waller ISD Admin, Berkshire Convention Center, Prairie View City Hall, as well as the Memorial Student Center.
Second.
You've heard the motion that Resolution C, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Prairie View, Texas, ordering the general election of officers for mayor and city council place 4 and place 5 for May 2nd, 2020, ordering a special election for city council place 3 for May 2nd, 2020, appointing an election official and providing early voting locations of Waller County Community Center, Waller County Annex, Waller ISD Admin Building, Brookshire Convention Center, Prairie View City Hall, and Memorial Student Center, PVAMU. You've heard the motion, ready for discussion? Councilman Reynolds.
So I guess my first question goes to, when we look at Resolution A and Resolution C, right, I thought it was communicated that most of the citizens would have preferred to vote at the community center rather than City Hall. And so it also allows the city not to be shut down during voting. And then on the back end, it allows us to only have to pay for one additional, if we were to just add MSC to resolution A, it allows us to only have to pay for one additional voting location instead of two. And I think that gives us,
Yeah, but don't this impact election day as well?
no, it's just early voting.
It's just early voting? Is it early voting?
So the polling places for election day itself are determined in your joint election agreement, which is coming up a couple of items further on your agenda.
So these locations and that location.
This is early voting only on this piece of paper that you're voting on right now. Your general election order only shows early voting locations, and those are not always the same as your polling places.
All right.
Okay, and then we also, so my second caveat is that we didn't even talk about what it was gonna cost to have two.
But I release it that way, the item further allows us to pick what we'll have our, election day. So, I'll hold my motion on the floor.
So can we talk, do we?
Hold on. Is the motion officially been withdrawn? Okay, so the motion's withdrawn, so the floor is open for another motion.
I'm trying to get some clarification on the cost and where.
This
Said about
our
$8,000.
our council have already told us that it'd be a little bit above what we paid last time.
Correct, and so clarity, when I look at this sheet, is that for the two locations?
Yes,
All right.
that was the total invoice from last year.
And so the question is, we don't talk about it in this resolution, we're just talking about locations. One of the issues that I thought we had to designate was the dates. So is that all early voting? So we're saying in this, every day for early voting will be in these locations, or?
No, sir, that's in your joint election agreement, the dates. The only thing that has to be in your general election order is what places you're voting for, who the elections administrator is, their mailing address, and the early voting location.
Right.
Times are optional. And since this is the last date that you can vote on this needs to be done.
Right.
Included in your joint election agreement are the times and the dates, but your early voting locations need to be in.
So we have both of them in the packet. The question is, if we can adopt this, we can adopt the resolution, but you're saying we don't need to have clarity on this, on the joint election agreement?
We have to pass the resolution.
This is calling for the election.
Yeah, we gotta do that today.
The agreement is separate.
Next.
So by state statute, your order of election has to be passed by this Friday. This is your last meeting to pass this one. If you don't pass your other agreement tonight, it's not the end of the world. That's not under a statute. I just need this one passed before Friday in one form or another, so I gave you the most simple form without the times, because
Councilman Wallace.
Can I get clarity on what it means about appointing an election official?
Somebody to be over the elections.
So, that's what I'm saying, like,
so in this particular resolution, you're naming Christy Eason, the Waller County Elections Administrator, as the Elections Administrator.
Councilman Jones.
I move that we approve resolution.
C?
Well, yeah, I'll go back. Resolution C with removing Kirby City Hall, as, early voting place.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that resolution C be approved with the removal of Fairview City Hall. You've heard the motion, ready for the questions. Council, any issue with that?
Nope.
Okay.
I got another question.
Councilman
I got
Randall.
another question.
Yes.
Is this cost for the duration, it says early voting plus election day, 2 weeks, each 14 days. So this cost is the cost for having it in a separate location for the entire early?
Okay, so what I'm telling you is, just to be kind, it's not my job to get you election costs, but I thought you might want to know. I pulled last year's invoice from Christy Eason. That's all that is. I have no idea how much it's going to cost you. That was just by way of example, what it cost last year. I don't know what those mean. I can't help you any more than I
Last year we
have.
had the two locations, which was on campus at City Hall. Now, what she said, so there's two costs. There's what we have on here, which would be the MSC. The joint election, we don't have a number unless it's in this agreement. And so then that would be, you know, we usually budget around $11,000 to $12,000 for an election.
So just for clarification, my question is less revolving around the actual cost as to the duration of the voting that's gonna be in the second location. So, that's what I'm trying to get the clarification, is if we're saying we're gonna pay whatever that amount is, that early voting location is open from beginning of election time or the end of election time. That's what my question is. It has less to do with cost and more so the length of time.
Understood, and that's completely a policy decision of the city council. I have no, I don't want to try to influence you in any way, shape, or form as to how you do that.
And would that not be covered in the agreement itself?
Well, in attachment A of the agreement are the times and the days for that, and they're not set in stone. They can be changed when we get to the joint election agreement.
Any other readiness?
I guess my on here, there is no place where we're gonna vote on or discuss the joint elections agreement. You're saying that.
Yes, I'm sorry, it's item
Item,
it's item 6, it's item 18, pardon me.
Call for question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right. Motion passed. Item 16, discuss and take action on equity inclusive resolution. Councilman Rowland.
Council, everybody has received, I don't know, did everybody receive the form, the document? Do y'all have one? Again,
Hold on. Yeah. I know since it's showed in the email.
here's another one.
I put it up there.
Okay.
Yeah, I put it up there.
Again, council, citizens, this resolution, resolution R 2020-02-10-002 is a racial and social equity resolution. The objective of this was to develop a shared understanding for us to be able to analyze data with a racial equity lens, to explore policies and systems that perpetuate racial and social inequities within the city of Prairie View. We want to talk about normalizing and operational racial and social equity in governing, and so that's why I working on this resolution. We talk about equality, sameness. Equality provides the same things for everyone. This works when people start from the same place. Equity is kind of a justice lens. Equity is about fairness and about providing people with the resources and the opportunities they need, given their history and set of circumstances. Again, a lot of these things talked about, some of the citizens who came and had questions about rezoning and other issues about infrastructure. These are some of the things we talk about when we talk about policy decision making. What does racial and social equity require? Race is defined as a grouping of humans based on shared physical or social qualities into categories generally viewed distinct by society. Racial equity is not just about people of color, rather it includes people from all nationalities. Closings of gaps so that race does not predict one's success while also improving outcomes for all. Targeted strategies to focus on improvement for those who are worse off, and moving beyond services. We want to dismantle racism and biases based on policies, practices, and norms of the institution and structures and system. What this is doing is a first step on for us becoming a equity inclusive city. And there's six steps. The first is setting an example and strike the right tone, which is encouraging city staff to examine racial biases embedded in city department services. Number 2 is observe and listen, examine data such as tickets, citations, arrests, health outcomes, and metrics for citizens in our community. Make a public declaration on which we're talking about, consider a resolution. Number 4 is dedicated infrastructure to action, staffing requirements on racial equity and unconscious bias. Number 5, committing to policy change. Consider who will be better or worse through all policies, like we're talking about rezoning, infrastructure, making sure that the city is number 6 is create a formal racial and social equity plan, create a plan guiding statement, creating annual performance measures and processes for evaluating each action and identifying staff for each measure and process. That is what this resolution is about. I'll just read the first part. A resolution of the Prairie View City Council of the City of Prairie View committing the City Council to systematically and deliberately applying a racial and social equity lens in our decision making. And it goes on to say, whereas the City of Prairie View City Council embraces the great diversity in the city, and whereas the City Council recognizes the history of racism in our country and how it has led to many current daily disparities in education, job attainment, housing, and many quality of life indicators for people of color and nationalities. Whereas the City Council recognizes that racial and social inequalities have become ingrained and institutionalized in policies and practices of many agencies, governmental and otherwise. Whereas the City Council recognizes that issues of racial and social equality must be addressed proactively and deliberately in courses of decision making. And whereas the City Council recognizes the need to unpack seemingly neutral policies and practices to determine whether they're contributing to racial and social inequality. And whereas the City Council will continually engage in open and honest dialogue with experts on the subject of race and social equity. And whereas the City Council is interested in exploring and instituting methods that have worked in cities around the country to bring awareness, update, eliminate, or create governmental policies and practices and programs specifically to dismantling existing racial and social disparities. And whereas the City Council acknowledges that it may not always be clear what the potential of impacts on the decision will be on race and social equality, but we are committed to applying a racial and social equity lens in systematic ways in its decision-making process with the goal of continuing to